Hello, my name is Christopher Evans. I am originally from Long Beach, New York. I have been in Lynchburg, Virginia for 10 years. I am an actor.
I'm Carl Hutcherson, and I'm the prior pastor of First Baptist Church South of Lynchburg. I'm lifelong Lynchburg native. Served for 10 years on Lynchburg City Councils, 2 years as vice mayor, 6 years as mayor. And I have been in ministry for a number of years and former business owner in the city of Lynchburg, and have 4 children, 6 grandchildren, and really have a great affinity for this community.
Good afternoon, my name is James Mundy, and I'm the President CEO of the Lynchburg Community Action Group. I've been with that nonprofit agency for approximately 15 years. Prior to working with the Lynchburg Community Action Group, I served in the New Jersey public school systems, went through the gamut of being a teacher, a building principal, assistant superintendent, county level superintendent of schools. So I've been very education focused, and my other background experiences has been in the world of business.
Hi, my name is Dee Brown. I'm an author and a playwright.
Hi, I'm Rory Lee Washington, originally from Long Island, New York, but I've been here in Virginia and in Lynchburg for the past 7 to 8, maybe 10 years, something like that.
My name is Leonie Hall. I'm a recent graduate of Heritage High School, and I participate in numerous activities in the community.
Hello, my name is Highland Hank Hubbard, and I'm a native of Lynchburg, Virginia. I'm a retired insurance executive and currently a community volunteer, including, by the way, the Board of Trustees for Randolph College here in Lynchburg.
My name is Walter Major Ford, F-O-R-E Jr. I've been privileged to serve as president of Local 2864 United States Steelworkers of America at the Griffin Flag Plant. I've been privileged to serve as Central Virginia Labor Council president. I've served as president of Lynchburg Voters League. I currently serve on 5 different boards. It includes Lynchburg Community Action, Rush Homes, Interfaith Outreach, and Workforce Investment Board, and I had 2 terms on the state board that was reported by Governor Warner, and that's Virginia Cares, and that was the organization that tried to make place for ex-prisoners when they came out. So I've been fortunate enough to serve on quite a few committees that serve the community.
My name is Donald Hendricks. Originally from Madison Heights, Virginia. Lived the last 48 years of my life in Lynchburg, with the exception of being in Connecticut and in the military. Came back, worked here at R.R. Donnelly, used to be Murder for 37 years. Retired, enjoying life, and having a good time. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Robert Flood. From Lynchburg, Virginia. I moved back here about 3 years ago, left here in 2004, went to Lincoln University in Missouri, which I worked, and then after 1 year, ended up going back to school, which I finished with my bachelor. Then I came back to Lynchburg. So I've been back since 2012, working at Virginia University of Lynchburg, which my title is Athletic Operation Manager. 2 weeks ago, they gave me the assistant coach job in basketball. So that's a little brief about who I am.
Hi, my name is Kenneth Ferguson. I grew up in Lynchburg, went to college, and migrated to Missouri, where I worked at a university out there for 35 years. I have since retired.
Okay, my name is Harry Jordan. Lifetime resident of Lynchburg, Virginia, retired educator.
My name is Kenneth Oglesby. I'm from Lynchburg, Virginia. I am a founder and 10-time president of Black Moses of Lynchburg, which was very prevalent back in the 70s and 80s. I am also the past president of the Lynchburg Voters League for 10 years. And I also having worked for 18 years at the Job Corps in Monroe. My life has been about our people.
Donald Preston, citizen of Lynchburg, Virginia.
My name is Sterling Allen Wilder. I'm from Lynchburg, Virginia. I'm the executive director for the Jubilee Family Development Center. I'm the former member of the Lynchburg City School Board, and I'm also active in various other organizations, from the Free Clinic to the Opera on the James to various other organizations in our community.
I'm Dr. Caesar Trinell Johnson, Sr. I'm the pastor of Spring Hill Baptist Church. I serve on Lynchburg City Council for the last 11 years, and I serve now as the Vice Mayor of the City of Lynchburg. I'm a native of Jackson, Mississippi. I am a graduate of Alcorn State University in Norman, Mississippi. I have a bachelor's degree in agriculture economics. I have a master's and a doctorate of ministry degree from Virginia University of Lynchburg, formerly Virginia Seminary and College.
What would it take to get 100% of Lynchburg's black children and their parents involved in a preschool program that would benefit their future?
I believe that it is a possibility to get 100% participation in preschool. However, it has to be a concerted effort of the entire community. It has to be a leadership of our city council. It has to be a leadership of our school board and school system. But even just as importantly, it has to be a goal, a vision of our entire community. It has to have total community support. In the black community, there are an awful lot of barriers, if you will, to people who would encourage their young children to come. There are single mothers who, because they can't get transportation, they find themselves not being able to put their children in preschool. We've got to make sure that all of our preschool offerings are coordinated so that our children can be a part of it, and that can include all of our children. And I'm actually encouraged that this kind of event is taking place today, so that we can at least get a word out to the community that we need that kind of support.
Okay, my perception of looking to try to get 100% of anyone or anything involved is that you've got to engage with the family structure. We're talking about children, preschool age children. We've got to be involved with the family. We've got to have the interest level of the family, but we've also got to make sure that there's a value there. In the family structure, there are many things, many impediments that often prevent children from being engaged in activities, particularly at a preschool age, because it's not required by law. So we would have to be able to get into that family structure and convince the family that this is beneficial for the child in order for us to get them engaged in a program at an early age that will benefit them as they continue to progress through school and give them much more of an opportunity to be successful.
In order to get 100% of our African American children in preschool program, it's going to take the community to get more mobilized from using the churches, using the fraternities and sororities, using other civic groups to kind of get to the pavement and talking to various parents, going like door to door, talking to parents about enrolling their children in preschool programs. Because we understand the parents are going to be the child's first teacher. So we also need to encourage them to be the first teachers, but then encourage them to get involved in preschool programs, because that's going to be the key to excelling them for their future portion of their education. Starting them on the first basic things, basic skills, color, shape, sizes, and various other skills that are required in order to go to the first grade, and therefore getting the right start at the beginning is crucial.
To get more preschoolers enrolled and actively involved in school, to make a difference is basically it starts at home. There's really no other answer to that. It starts at home, and you got to look at parents. We don't know, and parents have to make a difference to know that preschool is actually much needed, and that's what it takes.
In order to get 100% participation out of the African American community is a puzzling question. We never get 100% of anything. But if we want to be honest about it, education and early information would be the way to go at it. We would have to first and foremost remember that we have a divided community and not be ashamed to go wherever the kids are. And then we have to start early getting the word out that this is available and that this is a necessary part of their life for their future development. Most parents want the best for their kids, and if they know it's accessible, I think that they will be agreeable to doing it. And so we have to do it early, and we have to also invest the money that it would take to get them where they need to be, whether it's transportation or providing meals or whatever obstacle that they can provide. We have to have a way to overcome that so that they will have 100% guaranteed access to it.
How can we divert the capital that is now going into the privatization of the prison system and other non-productive avenues into the education of our children?
One of the ways we can divert capital from going from the prison systems into the educating system is by educating those who are giving the money. Let them know that their money will be put to better use by going into education. The children need to be addressed, and that's one of the things that we are not doing. If we look to the children and see the needs of the children, then we don't have to worry about what's going to happen to them in the future, meaning where we're going to put them. And that's why we look to employ the prison system. If you privatize the prison systems, people are making money. So those people that are making the money, let them turn around and invest in the children. Let them have the programs that are going to educate the kids, that are going to keep them busy, keep them mentally stimulated.
We're looking at the thought of trying to divert capital that's currently going into the prison system and utilizing more of those dollars for the education of children. Again, when we look at our children, I think it's the nucleus of what is to come for us. And so we have to be willing to provide as much of an opportunity for them, be it educational opportunity or financial opportunity, to make it work. When you look at what's put into the prison systems, I'm not saying that those people that are incarcerated should not be cared for, but I really believe that the young, the youth of this world is where our foundation is and where our dollars should be really focused as much as we possibly can. So I would certainly look to see if there couldn't possibly be some realignment of priorities in terms of those dollars going into the prison system, and see if there's not a possibility that we could send less there and more into the public education system.
In order to divert funds going from prison system to educational system, it's going to take all the citizens voting. That's going to be crucial, because the majority of times we have an election, a lot of persons, especially in the inner city community, do not utilize their right to vote. So it'll take all of us, number one, voting, and all of us getting certain agendas on the ballot box or talk to our congressional leaders. So if we elect the correct people, they're going to have our voice by us mobilizing together. Then it's going to make a difference in things like money going to schools versus money going to prisons. So we can stress to our leaders and say we have a voice because we elected you. So instead of having money going to prisons, we want money to go to education systems. But if we don't vote, we don't have a voice. So that's going to be crucial, is having a voice by voting.
A way we can, I guess you could say, transfer or get the money involved into education system instead of prison systems is basically just, it starts out by voting. If you get someone on that board that feels the same way you do, then it would most likely increase the chance of it being pushed towards educational reasons rather than prison. And also another way is just stop incarcerating people as much nowadays. It's a big problem. You spend all this money on apprehending someone and not trying to educate them and help them become something better in life. So just basically stop focusing on arresting someone and give them a chance and actually educate them and let them know, okay, you can make something different. Like, you can be successful if only you get into those books and you make a difference.
One of the things as citizens of this city or any city, you have to have the will of the citizenry to decide that they no longer want to fund the prison system, and they want to fund the educational system, and they want to level the playing field because we know that education is the one key that levels the playing field for everyone. And then the public, the population of that city has to decide for themselves that they are worth it. We too often are afraid of allow fear to factor in, and we are quick to want to marginalize people and lock them away for life. And we have to reverse that mind thinking and say that we want to give everybody an equal opportunity to have a leg up and do away with our caste system that we have. So there will be no upper class or lower class or middle class, but we'll all be one class, educated, populated people. And then we have to elect people who are like-minded, people who are non-selfish and who believe in education, especially public education. So often we elect people because of who they are in the community or their status, and we don't elect them because of their value system. In our population, we have people that we put in authority over the money and who have the right to allocate the money, but they don't all send their children to public school, or they don't believe that the public school is adequate. And so we have to make sure that the individuals who are elected and put in positions of power value public education. We have to vet them better, and then we have to put people in who are willing and have the will to divert the capital from the penal system into the educational system, and also allowing people to understand that the community will still be safe without new prisons, but in the long run the community will be better by investing in these lives on the front end and giving them an education so they can provide for their lives in the future.
To what extent do you believe that black people, and black men in particular, are still feeling the effects of slavery?
Black men in particular are still feeling the effects from slavery in many ways. We can look at the prison demographics. Black men are, like, their numbers in the prison system outweigh any other gender or race here in America. So the prison system acts as a form of slavery, and just the way black men, we're not as affluent as black people in general aren't as affluent as the white race. We kind of had a late start to gaining economic gain here in this country. So
I think some people, black men in particular, still feel the results of slavery really out of a sense of the way the system is set up. Even though we might have been freed from slavery, we still had to depend on the white man for employment, subsistence, and even the vote, and just about every walk of life. That seems to have continued from one generation to another in varying degrees. And I think we have to get to the point that we have to unify, and we have to all become students of history, of black history in particular, because if we don't, we surely will repeat it.
Go ahead. It's apparent that when I think about we still using that slave mentality, me as a black man and my fellow black men, we see it as a, probably, I might be not using the right word, but as a label struggle. I do not see us advancing. We are advancing, but we could be advancing more so far as jobs. That's a key point. Our community always worked the lower end of the job market. And you still, even females will say the same thing. They are not welcome in cooperative world. To me, that's still somewhat suppressing the black man for him trying to make a living, to make it in with his family and provide for them. I look at that as a key issue. And then, two, I still think we got this clique in society where one still feel they are better than the other. To me, these are two key things that I look at with this situation.
As a former history teacher in public schools in Lynchburg, I'm reminded of the fact that historically, black families, there were attempts to destroy black families during the period of slavery. And in many instances in today's society, that has not diminished to the point that it is finally cast aside. we have families that are headed, almost half of our families are headed by single mother parents. That is not a pleasant figure. That's not a happy figure. Black males in many instances are provided, if they have jobs, they're on the lower end of the total pole. There are still black men who were last hired, first fired. The educational system has changed to the point that everything is technical. So much is technical. Technology has really taken over. And so black males have a responsibility too, to be challenged, to participate in those things, to develop computer skills, to develop the kinds of skills that are going to help them grow and be the people that they can be. And so we look, it's almost like a two-pronged effect for people to really do what they can do in order to grow. But the system has to change to the point that that people will feel competent, they'll feel good about themselves, they'll have the right kinds of feelings about how they are, who they are.
Slavery was a system that was instigated into this country and was a way of life. And even until this moment, until this very day, there's a mass majority of black men who are still feeling the repercussions of slavery and the system that was set up. And so we're still feeling those effects, and we'll continue to feel those effects until everyone has an equal opportunity in this country. It's a mindset that we have to break through, but it's a reality that many people live with. Our families which were separated, our families who were raped, members who have never known who their grandfathers were, who can't trace their roots back. Slavery has did a savage job on our people, but it's not something that's not overcomable. We can do this and we can get through this, but this system that was set up is still being affected to this very day.
I feel sometimes black men still feel the effects of slavery because we're continuing to be held down for certain jobs, for certain opportunities, for certain, even in certain classrooms, and some persons might not treat them as equal, or might not give them the opportunity that they deserve. So a lot of times they still feel like they're enslaved because we still have certain effects by that. So it's going to take several issues to rectify that, as far as programs on interfaith, programs on racial diversity, programs of that nature to kind of get over that. But it's going to take a lot of challenges to get to that point. And if we got to let young African American males know that they are somebody. So we got to continue to give them mentoring programs, give them programs that kind of encourage their self-esteem, to let them know that they are not enslaved, but they have an equal opportunity, but we got to educate them more as well. So education on both parts.
Mostly black young men and black people in general. You know, it's sad, but it's true. Yes, we have came a long ways, but the slave mentality is still there. And you can tell when people have, when people start feeling that effect, and it goes way back before I was ever thought of. And instead of trying to pull together to help each other as a race, a black race, sometimes we can hurt each other, you know, your own folks. And I think, you know, when you go back, think about how things happened back in the slavery time, where you had masters and, you know, what they call a house nigger, which are a word that has generated over here during this time, that people use it in different ways, you know. And now the young people are using it as just a figure of speech or just a term. They don't know the history of the slave mentality when the N-word, let me rephrase that, the N-word was used back then. It was a hatred word, and it's how you use the word. I mean, as a black male, I mean, we can use it to each other in one form, and a white person or another a minority can use it in a different way. And I think it has came a big issue today, and things have changed, the generation have changed, but the slave mentality is still there, just like racism, you know. And we think and hope that it has got better over the years after what a lot of our people, white and black, together, trying to change a lot of things to make it good for everyone, you know, to be equal on different situations where everybody be treated fair. But we still have a long ways to go, and we have a lot of things we need to do to make it better.
When I think about black men and the idea that they still may be feeling some of the aftermath of slavery, I have to think that many black men still do not feel that they are given an equal opportunity to do things. They feel that because of the color of their skin, there's still a barrier that they have to get over, and that barrier has not been removed. Oftentimes, when blacks go to apply for positions, they don't receive as much consideration, or they feel they don't, as the non-minority applicant would get. So you're looking back and you're thinking that during the time of slavery, blacks were looked at one level and non-blacks at another level. And this is still carrying over in the mental concept of many African Americans. They feel that I'm still being perceived as less than a non-minority applicant. So that is what we have to continue to get over. We've got to move beyond that, because it still is a cloud that hangs over many blacks' head.
It seems that black youth and a lot of us today don't see themselves as being successful. How do we give black youth the sense of hope that they will be successful in American society?
I think we can give black youth hope for being successful here in America by encouraging them while they're young. I was lucky enough to have a positive role models in my life to encourage me, telling me that I can be anything that I wanted to be. And not a lot of my other friends growing up had those role models in their life to encourage them. So I think we have to encourage them while they're young, and even as they get older, we just have to be positive role models for them. Positive role models for them. Yeah.
The way that we instill success into our black youth, I feel like this is a question. There are a lot of answers for this, but I feel like one of the ways to really get down to it is to put more successful black males in front of them. All right, and when I say that, I mean successful black males in the sense of the educator, successful black males in the sense of your civic leaders, successful black males in the sense of the men in the community who are actually doing good for others. Let's get away from the successful basketball player or the successful football player. You know, most black males, I think, see success as that athletic scholarship. And we are so much more. We can be so much more. Let me get the firefighter who just saved 2 or 3 lives last week, or who saves lives on a daily basis, to come out and show our youth that they too can do this job. I think that's going to be the real major way to show the youth to be successful. The other thing that I think that we need to do things a little differently. I want to say we need to bring our successful people out, and we don't just need to talk to the youth. We need to interact with them. Let's show successful people doing an activity that the youth want to do as well. Let's put these people together and show the youth that these successful people are real people, and yes, everything that they do is achievable for you.
To make a young black man feel successful is a hard situation. I personally speaking myself, I have worked with a couple of young black males through the Big Brothers program, which I took upon myself to spend days, take off at lunchtime, One little young fella had never been to a football game, so I took him with my son and myself to UVA to watch a football game. It was very rewarding. I don't know how we can change the greater population, but I think we as black men, older black men, and younger black men, we can mentor and work with some of these young guys and help them along. If it ain't no more than spend a few hours, teach them how to play chess. Take them to a ball game. Take them to the mall and show them how to shop. Some kids don't even know, all they know is what to go in to get something sweet to eat, not maybe even buy a pair of pants. But I think it's little things we have to start with and try to do that. And if we do, I think if you can save a handful, you've done something.
In my view, in order to be successful, you've got to work at it. Nothing really comes free. You've got to work at it over the course of your lifetime. But one of the things that those of us who have been at least partially successful in our country need to serve as better mentors to those who are younger. And mentoring does not include just senior citizens mentoring younger folk. It means younger folk mentoring younger folk, those who are youthful, those who are in school. Kids who are doing a great job in school can mentor those who are not doing as well as school. The other thing in our school systems, we've got to make sure that there are teachers and persons in our public education system that look like the children that they teach. When there's a large or significant demographic of African-American children or black children in our schools, we need to have some black faces in high places.
Well, I am that example by not giving up. Hope is something that you always have. You know, God gave you a brain, you can use it or abuse it. And I use myself as that example that I never gave up. I always thought that if I changed some things within me, things would get better. And I think that's a message that you have to tell young people that feel like that there's no hope because sometimes they put themselves in that position when they're around negative people that always saying that you won't going to be nothing. You're not going to be nothing. You won't live to get 17. You won't live to do this. But you got to dig down inside you and realize that if you change some of the things within yourself to make yourself a better person and get around positive people, that God will give you the rest of it, all the power that you need to be successful. But you have to change within. We can use all excuses in the world why that, we don't think that we won't be successful, and we could use people as well. But you have to look deep down inside of yourself, change within, and everything on the outside, with God's help, you will, make it.
I think the question about some young people today not seeing themselves being successful requires, to some extent, a definition of success. First of all, and my definition, I can't define it for everybody because for some people it's excelling in sports, it's excelling at academics, it's excelling in financially, achieving even basic goals of just having a decent life, home ownership, having a strong family. So there are a lot of definitions, and I think you have to kind of search for those definitions yourself. I think as regards young black men and young black children, we do need, however, to support their concepts of success and help them form them. And we do that by making sure that we don't advertently or inadvertently exclude them from frameworks that will allow them to be successful or to become successful. And a good example of that is, for instance, in school, because of cultural diversity, because of background, in some instances, children will learn differently. There should be differentiated instruction and education for children based on their way of learning. And I think when you do that, you find that you tap into a part of that child which can be very successful. And so they need that type of reinforcement. They need not to feel as if they are somehow second-class citizens. And I'm not saying that is always the instance. I think that happens a lot of times just because of situations. And if there are behavior problems, they have to be dealt with. That puts the kid into a different place. So once again, I'm a believer that America is essentially one big family. I also believe that we don't behave that way at this point, but if that is our ideal, then we should work towards that ideal. Structure our thinking, structure our program, structure our politics, which, by the way, politics is just a way of distributing wealth and resources. Structuring those things so that we fully pull in everyone in our society, and don't make that a rhetorical thing, make that an actual thing. So I think that in terms of basic success, people being able to get through education, being able to get jobs, being able to have a decent life, I think if we structure our ways, our programs and our resource utilization in ways that will allow people to do that, some of the other problems will go away. There's a presumption that if people are not successful, then maybe there's something inherently wrong with them, that maybe they're lazy, maybe they really don't want success. And I don't think there's anything farther from the truth than that. I think that if we get people productive in the society and mean that in a serious way, not just in a perfunctory way where you throw something at them and say, well, that program didn't work. You see, they really don't want to do. I think we have to change that mindset and get people involved productively. Then I think a lot of the other things that create perceptions of people, why they're not successful, will disappear. I'm a firm believer in that, but we need to embrace it.
When we're looking at the black youth and trying to inspire them to be forward-thinking, we have to let them know that opportunity is there for them. The school is there. They have a brain. They have the ability to learn. And application is what they have to do. They've got to study hard. They've got to apply themselves. Nothing comes easy, but there's nothing that shows that the black would be less able to learn if he or she applied themselves than the non-black. So we have got to let them know that they've got to come forward. They've got to be convinced and realize that they have every opportunity and they have the ability and the knowledge to do it. And it's on them to strive to do it. Don't give up because of the color of your skin. The color of the skin has nothing to do with what's in the brain. So we have to let them know that they have the mental capacity to be successful, and that direction, drive, wanting to work, studying, doing homework, doing all of the things you need to do, being engaged in other extracurricular activities are the way that they can be successful, not just sitting back and feeling that somebody didn't give them something that they should have had. It's up to them to have the drive and the ambition to want to succeed. And we as adults have to really help to instill that in them. We've got to be able to tell them what they need. We've got to be willing to read with them, to engage them in activities that challenge their mental capacity so that they can move forward and be on a par with their age mates in school. Because that's the biggest thing, not starting school behind everyone else and being afraid that you don't know. They've got to know that I am as capable as the next student.
I think we have to continue to educate African American males, especially about the successful person that we have in our community, the local community and also in our national community, from our president to certain congressmen that are still in place, to certain civic leaders like our vice mayor and various other civic leaders, some of our past superintendents with African American, Dr. McKendrick. So I think promoting positive images of successful African American males, educating them, also educating African American males on our rich history. A lot of times it's not portrayed or not given all the information of the great things that we have done as people. From the light bulbs. It wasn't only Thomas Edison, but there are other African Americans that are on that committee. So make sure that African Americans youth have the knowledge of the great things that we have done. They can be proud of their past. A lot of times in the schools, unfortunately, they don't promote or don't show all the things that we have done to contribute to this great America. So we got to get our kids involved in mentoring programs, got to get our children involved in education programs, got to get our children involved in reading more, not playing video games, but our children more in reading more so they can learn their history and become knowledgeable and increase the self-esteem that we know they have the ability to have.
It's not really someone else that can make you feel successful. You have to believe in yourself first that you can be successful. If your excuse is always, oh, my mother or father did not teach me that I can be someone in life, or they didn't install that upon me, then you would never believe or be successful in life. And success is not just finances. It's also just being happy in whatever you do, and you feel successful. So it's kind of an opinionated question because you can't really say how a reason why or how you can make someone feel successful. It's if they believe in themselves, and it's if they want to be successful.
We must begin very early on in our young children's lives by bringing them images and stories of successful African American men and women in all walks of life. There's this sense that we have no heroes or sheroes, and we don't tell our story that there are wealthy and successful African Americans throughout the annals of time when we have had an opportunity after slavery to own and to establish businesses. Some of the most successful entrepreneurs have been African Americans, some of the most successful inventors. But what we haven't done is told our story well. When we don't talk to our children as they grow up, from the cradle up through toddler stage, kindergarten, elementary school, junior high, we don't sit around and talk about Madam C.J. Walker. We don't talk about Maggie, who had a bank down in Richmond. We don't talk about Mr. Lewis, who took over a company and was a graduate of Virginia State and had this multicultural empire that he had built before he died. We just don't talk about wealth and the greatness and those people who are successful. For some reason, we're very humble. We don't tell our stories, and even in our families, when we have people who do well, we don't talk about it very often. Even in our communities, those who have their own businesses, successful dentists and doctors and lawyers, we just don't talk about them in the same sense and raise them up as heroes that our children can see that this is attainable for them. And we must start telling those stories earlier and more often. As we sit around and talk about the events of the day or what other people are doing, we have to also encourage them and tell them about the stories in our community of success.
We have to redefine what success means. Is success a dollar amount? Is success a property? Is success a car? Is success education? What does success mean? When we find and define that word, then we'll be able to reach other young black men and help them identify what success means to them. Success can mean a lot of money. Success can mean a nice car. But success can mean great grades. Success could mean a good job. Success is helping other people in your community, whether it is going next door and raking the woman's leaves, or if it's helping the lady down the street with her luggage coming from the airport or from the grocery store. Success is what is shown to our young men. Some people are very successful because they have taken the time to cater to their community. So when you look at people who are vice mayors of cities or presidents of the United States, or even people who own their own businesses, when they choose to not take the time to tell people about their success and what success meant to them and how they were able to gain it, we're not able to show our young people what success really means. So they have nothing to look forward to.
Why did baseball become such a fall by the wayside sport for African American youth? And I'm just curious because growing up it was always such a big thing at one time. Thank you.
It is so sad to say that depending on your age, baseball is something you know nothing about. And as a black man, If you look at history and if you see the sport of baseball, it's generally played with young people who have nothing else to do but gather together and have a good time. Nowadays, we don't want to gather together and have a good time. Also, we don't have our fathers taking us outside, tossing the ball with us. So if you had your dad telling you, come on, let's go outside and toss a ball, then yes, you may be interested in the sport of baseball. What you do have is dad sitting around on the couch on a Sunday afternoon, drinking a beer, watching a football game, saying, you know how much money they paid that man to play ball this year? Watching the basketball game, you know how much money they made? So we look to see how much money is made in other sports. And in baseball, yes, you can make some money, but you're not going to make nearly as much money as you're making in basketball and football, and that's the ideal approach.
I think it's because baseball isn't as fast-paced as what you're going to get with basketball or football. For me in particular, speaking for myself, I love baseball. It's still a form of competition. It may not be as fast-paced or as action-oriented as football or basketball, but you have so many people not enjoying baseball because it takes such a long way to get to the pros for baseball. You can play in high school and college, but you still have to go through a developmental system. And for football and basketball, it's a quicker road to the pros, so that can play a role in it as well.
Baseball sort of fell out of, maybe it's not the glory look, the diamonds, the jewelry, the money, the cars. Baseball is a much slower game. I played baseball and I played football. And when I was young, I'd like to have been a pro player too. No way I could have been. But I think a lot of guys got out of it. It became more and more that they phased, I ain't gonna say they phased, but a lot of black guys, when basketball and football come along, that took over. They left our roots, which was baseball back in the 50s and 60s and 40s, when Jackie Robinson was playing and coming along. My dad used to set us down, we watched Don Newcomb pitch. We would watch every bit of baseball and he would explain it to us. Now's the glory of hitting and killing somebody out there on the football field. I don't mean to sound, because I'm a big football fan too, but it's more money in certain sports.
I believe that African American youth do not participate in baseball as much because they're not being encouraged to participate in Little League. Many of our kids are encouraged to play football. A number of kids across the spectrum, black and white kids, Latino kids, are encouraged to play soccer. Soccer has become quite a popular sport in our country. But when one sport begins to gain momentum, it seems to be that the other sport or another sport loses that momentum. You can go down into South America and baseball is just as popular, probably even stronger than it's ever been before. But in our country, we don't see mothers, especially, encouraging their children to play baseball, and we don't see parents across the board going out to support their kids and encouraging them to play baseball. I believe that needs to change if we're going to encourage our kids to get out there and do what they can do.
I'm a native of Jackson, Mississippi, and one of the things that I would say is that baseball was looked at as a pastime sport in our community in Mississippi. It wasn't looked at as a way of life. And as we moved from the cotton fields into corporate America, our people stretched us to get into our education system and not put as much emphasis on games. They didn't see the game as a way of life for them. So this just was a pastime, hobby. It wasn't something that they looked at as a way to provide for their families. Life was so serious. So much was going on in the 60s and the 70s, and just trying to scratch out a way of living. Sports was just a way to entertain themselves. And the life and the responsibilities of life just got in the way, and so it was not emphasized. I want to say very clearly that we had fun, but they wanted us to get in our books, to put more of our focus on education, to put more of our focus on bettering our community. They didn't see baseball or pastime sports, something that they did in their leisure time on Sunday afternoon was a way out for them. They thought that education was the way out into a better life.
My question is, when did the N-word become so prevalent in the black community among young African-American youth?
I don't know if there was an actual time period that you can say the N-word became more quote-unquote prevalent. It became a necessity because I remember a time when we said we used the word as a positive. We took it back. We took ownership of the word. We made it our own. And in making it our own, it made it more appealing to the people, to the masses. Unfortunately, it has fallen by the wayside. It's not a positive connotation anymore. There's nothing positive about it because you want to be upset because other people have chosen to use the word in a positive way. You may be my in and I may be your in, but you know what? Society does not accept that. So we need to stop using the word all across the board. There's nothing positive about it. It has a negative connotation, and when you use it, people don't reflect on what may be positive about it. It hurts.
I think it comes from hip hop or rap music, where it started to become more prevalent in the 90s. We have these people that we look up to, and they're using this word, and we'll probably think it's okay for us to use it as casually as they do in their songs. So I think it comes from hip hop music era in the 90s. So
I think what I've seen is that this new rap music, we are a group of people who lost hope. Their parents don't have jobs. They don't have jobs. They look down on them because of the fact that in order for them to survive, they got to get welfare, which at one time, during my lifetime, we frowned within the black community about welfare. So now they have to embrace it. And embracing it, they are really losing their self-worth. So to use that word, to me, is self-defeating. But at the same time, they think that it's all right. But as a union president, I had to present to my union members that if they used it on the job, they would be subjected to losing their job. And we stuck to that. Nothing angers me anymore than for somebody to use that word in a playful manner. If you can use it, then why can't the white man use it? See, if you don't use it, then he's not going to use it. But when you go around using it in music and sell millions of copies, that tells me that whoever is sponsoring these records are condoning it, or else they could stop it. So I think it's making money off of it. They're degrading our people, and as a result, there's not nothing that we can do about it unless they regulate it.
Sadly, I believe that the N-word has been used down through the years, especially within the black community, not so much as a derogatory term, but simply as a term that was used. Wherein in the white community, it has been used more as a derogatory term. And that's why there has been an effort on persons in older age groups to make sure that the N-word is no longer used as part of their vernacular, as part of their vocabulary, that the N-word has been dismissed. Younger people, however, have not perceived that as of yet. They use it in our music, in rap music. They use it in other types of ways that they treat people. And not only are they using those kinds of words as a reflection toward black males or other black men, but as black women as well. Because there are other words that are just as harmful, just as hurtful, that are used against black women. And those words are not even worth talking about on a camera because they're so horrendous. But I can see that at least there are those who are willing to say, well, we're not going to use those words anymore.
I can't say exactly when it started because the N-word with blacks have been said ever since I was a kid. But I think the way you say it, and how you say it, even to your own people. But they have a more understanding about it when they say it to, you know, someone the same color. I think the definition of it being negative towards when a white person said to a black person is very offensive, because they look back and think about back in the slavery time, you know, what it was all about. And I don't know exactly where it came from, you know, and why, you know, people today have took it so, I guess, violent, you know, by saying it and using it, and they've been listening to this word for 20 plus years, but all of a sudden it's a big thing. And I think because the generation today, they wear the pants alike, they act alike, they shoot everything alike, white and black. And that generation is not looking at the color of your skin. They are more communicating with what each other like to do. They just bond together. And I think the generation back 50 years ago, when it was segregated, was so determined to keep the black and the whites from each other. And now this generation, you know, they are more closer. You still have some racism, you have some biased people that's still existing today. But I think the younger generation is a little more closer than it was back when I came through. And they use it in a term where it's just another word. But for me to hear it at my age or older, you have to look and say, did they really say that? Because the way they use it can be very negative, like I said, or for them, it's just another word. So I feel that, you know, it need to be just cut out altogether. But it would never happen, because you can't control nobody but yourself. And if you could control what these young people are doing, hey, you'll definitely have solved the problem that I don't think nobody on this earth can solve right now.
And the N-word has been used, unfortunately, lately in certain music material in a certain way that certain persons would address one another. They've used the N-word. But I think we as people need to educate our youth and others more about the way the N-word was used and the way it was normally used to degrade African American people, the way it was used. I think we need to do a better job of educating our people and continue to talk to our children, to continue to talk to our loved ones, continue to talk to young people in our community and educating them on that. But it seems like in the past couple of years it has been used. But I think we need to educate our children about the negative images and how we had to fight so it would not be used against us. So it wouldn't be used as a negative image for us. So we had to fight to get away from that, and now they picked up certain things like that. So we need to educate our children about the negative messages of that and what it meant.
I think that the N-word became a lovable word, or a word that they took ownership in the mid-'80s, late in the mid-'80s to the early '90s. This was a word that they took ownership for. As our community passed through words that was laid up on us, from color to black to African American, the N-word was their word that they began to use. They took a word that was meant for bad or hatred, and they did what we call what they did with a lemon. They turned it from a lemon into lemonade. And they took the N-word, which other people used as a race word to put us down, and they took it as a term of endearment. It doesn't mean that it still doesn't have the negative connotations, and we have tried to move away from it. But I think in the mid-'80s, early '90s was a time when hip-hop America took this word and embraced it as a word that meant something to them, and it meant that was a family member, a close kin, and it can be taken out of context. But in that group of young African American males who use that term, they took ownership of it and took it from a negative and made it a positive in their community, in their eyes. Older blacks never will see it that way. And we shouldn't, as a group, take it and use it and then get upset with other people when they use it. But this group of people took it and used it in a word as a term of endearment to them. And that doesn't make it right or wrong, but it's how they felt and what they did with it.
Is the decline in the black male leadership the cause of the generational decline in the black community?
When we talk about the decline of the black male leadership and the decline of the generational gap in the communities, I think what has happened is many of the positions that used to be attractive in leadership roles to blacks are no longer attractive. They have actually started to aspire to be in a more challenging, financially competent positions and occupations. And some of these positions or occupations do not lead for them to be the leader there, but they are doing very well financially. I really believe that that is much of the cause, the fact that males or the blacks in general have just started to go more into occupations that may not necessarily have them out front per se, but they are doing very well in those fields. And so they don't feel that going and taking a step backwards to do something, because many of the leadership positions that people occupy are really low-paying positions, and it would require that a person go backwards. And when people go to college and they study to be an engineer or an attorney or whatever, they often do not want to take some of these positions that really are very low-paying positions. Positions with state and federal governments sometimes are very low-paying jobs, and yet they have a title that demands a lot. I think the idea that they are moving away from it is strictly based on a financial perspective.
I see it because I have lived it. There are those who, within our community, within the black community, who have leadership roles and refuse to relinquish. My philosophy is that, like everything else, leadership roles should be terms. And after you spend a certain term, get out and prepare our young people to come in and take over. Our young people feel threatened because if they come and join an organization that's supposed to be black and for the goodness and for the advancement of black people, they find themselves being shunned. And as a result, we've lost leadership, potential leadership, because of our egos. And I can speak freely about this because I know I've had a hard time getting people to replace me as union president, Central Labor president, but when I became president of the Voters League, they tried to shut me and put me out. So there is an element in every organization that refuse to relinquish leadership. And it's hurting the entire race.
I don't know if the decline is due to the generational gap. I think the decline is due to the fact that we don't have young fathers wanting to be fathers. There was a time when young men had children that they wanted to educate those kids. Now you have young men having children and the mothers have to educate them. And then you take a society that doesn't want to take the time to show these children the right way. So if a man is born in 1950 and he has grown up in the 60s and he has all the struggles of the civil rights movement, and he has a child that is growing up in the 70s and 80s, and you're giving that child everything, there's no struggle there. So there's nothing to work for. And then that child turns around and starts having children in the year 2000s, you're giving your children everything. So if you've given a child everything and they've never had to work for it, or they've never had to earn it because you didn't want them to go through what you went through, yes, there is going to be a generational gap.
Yes, some of the decline in the black race is due to the fact that black leadership has been declining. It's across the board on everything, social, economical, any way you want to look at it, educational background, family background, whatever. But yes, to the question, it has declined.
That's an excellent question. I think it is. And the reason why, because we do not have, quote, leaders like we used to have. We have people that's leading, but not really leading, if you can understand what I'm saying. Young blacks are very intelligent and they're smart. They are definitely a lot smarter than a lot of us today. And they can see, they can hear, and they know what's going on. When you try to play both sides, and the reason I said that, you can go around your own people and act like you are definitely concerned about issues, concerned about what's going on in the neighborhood or the area, and you can tell them that you don't do something about it. And then when it comes up again 2 or 3 months later, and you're supposed to be this leader of this certain area, then there's no show. And then you ask the question, why? Why are you telling us something that you can at least try to do? Because I know you have other people you have to answer to. But why mislead us? And young people see that today. And they are so easy to find some negative or find something wrong with the picture altogether because they have a trust factor. It's hard to trust people today, just in general. And when you become a leader in a minority area, you have to do what you say you're going to do. And one of the things that young blacks today, I always hear them talking about, how can he tell me that he want me to do this and that, and I see him over here doing something he was supposed to be doing. Now, the first thing they don't think, why should I listen to him? Why? And then they take themselves out in an area where it's very negative around the wrong people, and that become their family. Then all of a sudden you want to rescue them because you want the popularity, or you want your name in the paper that I went out there and rescued that person because someone got shot or killed, and all of a sudden you want to become a leader. We don't have that kind of leadership like we used to have in Lynchburg. And I'm just saying that's my personal opinion about it because I've seen some great leaders. We have some guys now, they're getting a little older, but they still trying to fight for what's right. And, in Lynchburg, but it's not where we have a lot of people together on the same page. They play politics more than they ever. And I think that until they change that way of thinking and doing things, because one thing about this town here, this is my home, and once you get that bad vibe about a person, don't go away. You don't want to deal with that person. So until we change within ourselves as, quote, so-called leaders, right now, it's a question. Where are our leaders at?
I don't know whether there's a generational decline in the black community. Unfortunately, in the black community, we have less leaders than in the white community. In many instances, young white kids had parents who owned businesses, and so they encouraged their children to participate in those businesses. We didn't have a lot of that. I was fortunate in that I was able to go into business with my father. He is my hero because he had a business and was able to tell me about it. But by the same token, there are other persons who are not able to get certain kinds of jobs. We don't provide the jobs that I wish we could provide. And there are many who provide jobs across the spectrum of the community who still do not afford these same kinds of opportunities to black males as far as receiving the kinds of paychecks that they need in order to support and help their families and to be able to pursue their livelihoods. We've got to be able to help younger people by encouraging them we have in our city, an Office of Economic Development. Well, develop everybody. Don't just develop or develop larger businesses. Develop minority-owned businesses. Develop small businesses across the spectrum, because it's the small businesses that guide the fabric of this nation's economy.
The decline in black male leadership is it's a tough question because there are separate issues. This generation, the Bible said, will be weaker and wiser. This generation, because there's not going to be any more heroes. Let's be honest about that. We don't need an icon as we had in the past, like Dr. Martin Luther King or rise up of that type of person or Mandela. But each individual has an opportunity now to take ownership for their own destiny. This generation is a generation of people who feel entitled. We are taking on some characteristics of the larger society where it's just all about self. And it's not about the group moving forward together. And so we do have a lack of just the it person of that generational leader. But we also have a more educated group, a more educated generation. We have more opportunities than any generation ahead of them. And they just do not want to take responsibility for themselves. And we can't lay that at the feet of one individual. But each individual has to take ownership for their destiny. And we can move forward from there.
My question is one that I think about often, and I feel like most people are confused about right now, and it's whether you consider yourself a black male or an African American, and why, and does it really matter?
Today, I am a black man. In the future, I am going to be a black man. In the past, I was a black man. They started calling us African Americans because they wanted to clean up the term to make it pretty, to clean it up. Yes, it's acceptable in society to be called an African American, but an African American does not dictate my color. My color in society is black. You could be from South Africa, long blonde hair and blue eyes, come to America tomorrow, and you are considered an African American. To be called black is an identity. To be called African American is a label.
I consider myself an American. I don't know anything about Africa. I know the last terms defending my country as a Marine. And I had think I will have full 100% membership in American society. I refuse to be labeled. And as far as I'm concerned, as an American Marine, that I am a full-blown American. And I refuse to accept anything else.
I don't have any real concerns about whether or not I'm referred to as a black male or an African American. You have other people, European Americans, African Americans, Asian Americans. So I think it's just something that might be used to separate us, but I don't think it makes any more difference than it's only symbolic, just like the arguments and the fights over the Confederate flag. The Confederate flag itself is nothing but a flag, but we can get hung up so long on the flag and symbolism that we lose sight of the real battles that we still have to fight.
I consider myself an African American male, simply because if you look at the history of African Americans, if you look at the history of black people, we've had so many names, and some of them which were kind and some of them which were not so kind, that I want to embrace the good ones. I want to embrace blackness, not because I'm just as much American as anybody else. And I guess African American lets me know that I'm a part of both cultures. Every one of us who was transplanted to these shores is part of another culture. And there's nothing wrong, I don't believe, in embracing that culture. So I do prefer being called an African American because it's been the best name that I think that has come up with that I've seen so far.
You do not hurt my feelings, call me a black male or African American male, or just a male or a man. Just don't use those other words. Those are very belittling, and I don't particularly care for those. Thank you.
You know, that's a good question as well. I ran into a guy when I was at Lincoln University, Missouri. We had a program, and he was from Africa. And it's a question I ask sometimes, you know. African American black males, we are called. And then you have Africans that look at themselves as pure Africans. And the reason they say that we are not pure Africans because we were brought over here by, well, we came over here by some Africans over there that put us on the boat, but although we was brought over here by a different race, which we were it was inactive, basic, in different sects or whatever you want to call it. And that right there stopped us as African Americans in the United States being pure. And I asked to define the word pure, and he broke it down to me. You know, we are pure over here in Africa, and over here y'all have another minority that have penetrated, you know, some part of your family. And I understood what he was saying, but the reason I asked the question because some Africans from across the water in different parts of Africa, they don't really like us. They look at us different because of that. And they don't really share strongly our connection as being black because they feel like that we're not pure black because we weren't born and raised in Africa. So I got an understanding about it to a certain point, but as long as you have this kind of skin, which is African American, I think that you are always going to be recognized as a black African American. I don't care where you came from, but if you put it on your birth certificate, excuse my, you know, French in a way, that's what you are. So there's no way to change it unless you change your color of your skin. So we are all African Americans.
All right, the question of whether I consider myself to be a black male or an African American is very interesting. I think realistically I'm both. I'm a black male that many people now refer to as an African American. I don't have a problem with either. I think how I carry myself and how I present myself is what matters the most. So to be hung up on what you are perceived by way of words, you're African American, you're a black male, I think you're both. I just think it's just a question of terminology. And that's how I would look at it. I think I am both. I'm a black male that many people call an African American, and I'm proud to be such.
Well, first of all, I consider myself a black male. And the reason I say that over African American is because I really don't have the African traits that my forefathers had. That was kind of taken away from us, so I can't consider myself an African. I consider myself a black male, who happens to be an American. And it matters because in order for me to call myself an African American, I would have to feel some strong sense of Africanhood. I know my skin is the same color as my African forefathers, but I don't feel the African heritage, you know, within me as strong as they had, so I can't call myself that. And it matters because people should, you know, assess themselves, and when you try to assess yourself, that's when you truly discover who you are.
I consider myself an African American male. I think about this as I heard the question in my mind, and I thought about the last 2 or 3 applications I filled out. And I purposely penciled in African American. Every other social group or genealogical group in America has some roots somewhere. They're Italian American, they're Asian American. We are the only group that have been designated by a color. And I think it takes ownership when you say you're African American, even though we may not know exactly where in the continent of Africa we came from. It allows us to have a stake in the game that we know that we came from Africa, and we're also citizens of America. We were born in the USA. We're going to be Americans. But it also tells the greater society that I'm not ashamed to know that my parents came to this country, my grandparents, my forefathers came as slaves from the continent of Africa. And they survived slavery. They survived the Middle Passage. They survived the horrors of slavery. They survived Jim Crow. And I'm here today because of them. And I stand on their shoulders because of that. And I don't mind being known as an African American male. And I don't take any disservice away from it when other people identify me as black or colored or whatever they want to identify me with. But in my heart, I know that I'm an American citizen and I have genealogy or roots on the continent of Africa, and I'm proud of that.
You know, as far as whether we are considered to be African American or whether we're considered to be black, I think it depends on the individual. Me personally, I don't have a preference, whether I'm African American or whether I'm black. I embrace my African heritage. I am proud of that because of the great things that they have accomplished and what they have persevered over the years by the country itself being almost attacked, being abused over years and years of apartheid and years of people degrading the country for its resources. So I'm proud of my heritage and surviving that and what we did to come here in this country and the issue that we had to endure. So I embrace my African American heritage. I'm also embrace my blackness. So I embrace either one, but it depends on the person, what they're more comfortable with and what they prefer to be called. But as far as for me, I'm comfortable with both. African American, also comfortable with being black.
My question is to the African American man, specifically the young community nowadays, is why do we see a big difference to when our grandparents and fathers and great grandparents were coming up? They fought for what they believed in. They made a difference. To now, we make a lot of excuses and whine about little things, and it always has to be a black versus white thing rather than just taking ownership and being a man about it, and standing up to the plate and knowing right from wrong and actually making a difference.
One of the very crucial things that is going on right now, we had this apathy in our community, especially with our young African American males, and it's one of the things is that the generation before them wanted them to have a better life than they had, and so they never required them the same things of generations before. Parents who had to work or started early work and had all the chores, or had to work outside the home, had to pull back, had to pick cotton, had to bust wood or chuck wood. They saw their life as being a hard life, and they wanted to have a better life for their kids. And so they looked at the larger society and said their kids are well taken care of, and they wanted to emulate what they saw the majority of society doing. And so when they had kids, they decided and they made a conscious effort that they wouldn't bust wood, and they wouldn't work in fields, and they wouldn't pull cotton, and they wouldn't chop backer. And so they had raised a generation of people who feel entitled to everything. And then all of a sudden at 21, they're told that they're going to have to make a way, and they haven't been trained how to work on little things along the way. And so everything has been given to them, all of the conveniences of life. Every room in the house has a TV. Every room has a flat screen TV. There's all of the conveniences. Mom and dad are working, paying for the cable. Everybody got a cell phone. What do they need to work for? They driving cars that they didn't buy. They riding around in cars they don't pay no insurance on. They watching TV. They have no idea how the TV gets in their house. They eating food that they didn't have to kill or pluck. Chickens necks they didn't have to break. Eating beans they didn't have to strain. Eating jelly that they didn't have to can. And so now you want them to go to work. And they say, work for what? And they don't know how, because a whole generation have made them soft. And then we want them out of the house, and we don't know how to get rid of them, because we have created them that way. And that's nobody's fault. Everybody wants the generation behind them to have it better and go further and do better than the generation before them. But somewhere we dropped the ball, and now we are suffering the repercussions of it. But if we would stop buying the Nintendos and the PlayStations, is make them earn their keep along the way and show them that everything that they get they can't have, and that they got to work and to make it in this world. And I think that they would step up, but they have no reason to step up right now. But they will one day.
It's unfortunate, but I think our young men today are experiencing a wave of apathy. It's sad, it's upsetting, but they don't know what to do. They know what they want to do, but they don't know what they want to do. It's sort of a contradiction. They will be in society and they will tell you that I'm a man because society tells me I'm a man. But they're still a little boy, only because they don't want to make decisions. They don't want to take ownership. They don't want to lead. Whereas in the past, when young men were growing up, they had to take ownership because they had to take care and provide for the family. They had to lead because if the mother got sick, if the father got sick, there was somebody that had to do something. There was always somebody there to take care of someone. Nowadays, as kids, we all want our own stuff. We don't want to deal with old people. We don't want to deal with the past. And the sad part is, the only thing that we can say is that if you give me what I deserve, then I'll do what I'm supposed to do. And as the issue is, why don't you get up and do, as opposed to waiting for somebody to give you something to do? You're so used to people telling you that you can have this and you can do this, instead of you going out and making decisions for yourself. We want our young men to be men, but we don't teach our boys how to grow into be men.
I actually do see a difference between what's going on now and what happened with our parents, our grandparents, our forefathers, and so forth. And I think that the biggest difference is that it's situational. And what I mean by that is that during a time, especially during a time of segregation, the black community was by its very nature, in a de facto sense, together. In other words, you had to be together because you couldn't be in other places. And oddly enough and ironically enough, that created internal leadership. It created a certain amount of cohesiveness that we don't necessarily see in some instances now, because African Americans are scattered. We're not as monolithic. We're not the same as we were. And I don't mean to say that we all were the same pre-integration, but I think the fact that we're all part of one community that really wasn't divided in a lot of ways. And for instance, if you went to church in the black community, in that church you would see your teachers, you would see your bus drivers, you would see your dentists, you'd see your funeral directors, your teachers, you would see practically anybody you would know, or if you didn't know them personally, they would know somebody, or you'd know somebody that they knew. So that's what I mean by cohesiveness. And out of that type of environment, I think leadership almost comes naturally. The question of knowing right or wrong or stepping up to the plate is somewhat of a moral issue. I have to tell you that I think that the church formed the basis for a lot of that, and there were denominations then as there are now. There were Methodists, there were Baptists, Jehovah's Witnesses, and so forth, So that wasn't as important as the fact that the institution was there, that children, in fact, were required to go, which sometimes was painful, but nevertheless, I think it formed a basis for a moral compass. And so that when I, for instance, was out in the street acting crazy, somewhere in the back of my head, I knew, in fact, that I was wrong, because it had been instilled in me in a lot of places, church, home, school. So I think now that we're in this new society that we're in, I'm not sure that some of the institutions in place and some of the support systems in place to help young people with that type of guidance, that type of moral compass. I think that integration had some effect on that, and to the extent that leadership got diluted or went to different places, we may have dropped the ball. We may have dropped the ball. We did drop the ball in a lot of cases and didn't give the next generation, and actually for my age, the generation after that. So it's actually been a couple of generations who haven't had the benefit of the same kind of guidance that I had. That doesn't mean that we can't have that, but I just think we need to know how to regenerate that, reform that in the context of our current environment. We can't make things like they were because they are not like they were. They're different, and we have to understand that difference, but still reach for those things that are rudimentary, fundamental to creating good character and having, as I said before, that moral compass.
My feelings on young people, our young generation stepping up to the plate and being a man and, you know, doing what you're supposed to as opposed to making excuses for everything. The bottom line is the younger generation, they haven't really had to fight for anything. They haven't had to take responsibility. This is a generalization. I'm sure there are some that don't fit this category. But the bottom line is, in a society now where they're given, and if they're not given, they take. You're not forced to step up, be responsible, work for something, and truly achieve. So I think the message, is just to get for young people to realize that we will be gone, and it will be up to y'all. At a certain point, no one's gonna give you anything anymore. You have to man up. You have to grow up. You need to learn right from wrong, and you need to take responsibility. It doesn't matter what he did or she did. You yourself have to do. And it's never going to get better until you yourself do what you need to do.
Why do you think the black male is perceived as they are today in American society, even though we have a black, African-American president?
Barack Obama is the 44th president of the United States. The first 43 presidents of the United States happen to be white gentlemen. There have been no female presidents, even though one is running now on one of the party tickets. I believe that despite the fact that America sort of calls itself a post-racial society, we are well aware throughout this country that it is not a post-racial society. There is still a tremendous amount of racism. President Obama came into power, came into the presidency because there was a coalition. There was a coalition of white voters, African-American voters, Latino voters, gay and lesbian voters. There was a coalition of people who put him into office. And if you just examine how things are taking place now, there are efforts on behalf of certain state leaders, certain federal leaders, to curtail voting of that particular demographic of our country. so that an African American or even woman will not be elected president of the United States. We must understand that we as African American males are still looked upon as second class, as less than. And I believe that we've just got to change that mentality. We've got to demonstrate that that mentality is not the right mentality concerning any of our citizens.
Well, I don't think just because we have a black president, young black males and black males in general, I receive different. It's the same, long as you got the color skin that's darker, you won't be received different anyway. And just because we were blessed to have a black president, it don't mean too much of nothing. If you can't get the senator and the House to come together as a whole to change the laws that hurt minorities. So you could use that, in different ways to put it in a different category. Just because we got a black president, nah. It don't make no difference if it was a white president. Some people look at you the same. I don't care who you are, how rich you are, how poor you are, and they don't treat you the same way. There's so much hatred that's out here today, among people, and they don't even know you. But, just because of the color of your skin, we have came a long ways. But it hurts young blacks more today because they are hurting themselves as well. And they feel like there's no hope. And, one time you had a generation, when I came up, y'all always had a generation, somebody in that group that's older than you always would tell you you can do better. You don't have to do what I done. You don't have to go the way I went. And you looked up to those people, although they weren't doing the right thing, but it made a lot of sense what they were saying when you thought about it years later. And today it's like each generation from, I go back maybe to the 90s and the 2000, they are together. No one is telling their generation how you can change your life, like it was in the 70s, 80s, maybe the 60s. So we do have, in a way, a lost generation that I pray and hope, might not be in my lifetime, but I pray and hope that it change somewhere because they are hurting themselves more. Ain't about the white man or nobody else. Look in the mirror at yourself and realize that you can change your life and you can do better if you just don't give up.
Reflecting on why I think blacks are perceived in American society today, particularly the male, despite the fact that President Obama is an African American, I think that there's still that stigma that there are certain things that blacks should not do, that there are certain positions that a black male should not occupy. There's also still that stigma that blacks can't do certain things. That I remember, I guess a couple of years ago, I went into a setting and there were some young men came in, and one of them I noticed in particular, his hair was blonde and he was blue-eyed and dressed very nice, and he had a very, very arrogant air about him in terms of they should go first. Blacks still feel that they are being pushed back and dealt with as an afterthought. And this is something that really stays in your mind. Many blacks are still perceived as being aggressive or violent in nature. Many of them are still perceived as being untrustworthy. And these are things that we really have to move beyond. And society has to move beyond it. I think when you look at the ability of the person as opposed to looking at the color of their skin, we will make a great stride.
The black males today are perceived the way they are because of certain negative stereotypes. They might judge certain things based on certain music they may hear or rap videos, and sometimes they do have a negative connotation. So they will kind of judge African American males because of some things they see in the media. So the media will portray a lot of negative images instead of positive images. Once in a while you'll see them portray an African American male who receives scholarships to 9 Ivy League schools, but they don't publicize all the other positive things that are going on in our African American community. So a lot of times it's the media that portrays so many negative things. We do have some challenges in our community in white America, African American America, Hispanic America, in all sects of our population. We do have some challenges. So again, everybody has a challenge, but again, sometimes it's something that the media will portray negative images of African American males more. So we need to be cognizant of that and do what we can to talk to the media about promoting positive images. The media talk about promoting more positive stories instead of always going to the negative stories. And so when you have a situation in inner city America, if you have a crime going on, they're more quick to promote a crime that's going on or something negative than versus something positive, like giving kids backpacks or going to a mentoring program or taking kids on a college tour. They'd be more inclined to say something negative and promote that.
I think the perception of black men today is driven by a lot of factors, many of which are historical in nature. I think that we are still feeling the effects of slavery, and sometimes unconsciously we brought forward into today's mainstream and in today's society a notion of what black men are about, how they operate, how they think. I also think that a more modern extension of that is the fact that as a community, as a whole, we have not accepted each other as family members. We have not seen ourselves as a team. And if we are not having black men in particular participate as full members of a team, playing the roles that they can play, and that invariably is going to create some sort of perception. If they've been kind of relegated to the sidelines by virtue of not having proper jobs, proper income, and proper positions in society to be fathers and to be leaders, then no question, through the media and through other sources, it is easy to perceive black men in some instances as just not being worthy and not being upright and upstanding. I just think that we need to change the way we think about each other. And if we change the way people think about each other and the way people participate in the society, then you change your perception of them.
Black American men are perceived the way that they are nowadays, regardless of you have an African American leader. That doesn't make a difference. Starts on what you actually believe in. You can have Obama being the president forever if it happens, and that still is not going to change the way society may treat us or look at us, because one, we don't stand up nowadays. Like I said previously on my question is, we make a lot of excuses and we're very weak nowadays instead of actually fighting for it. So you got to make a change. You actually have to push and let them know that you want to be looked upon a different way, in a positive way, rather than just a black person that faces stereotypes.
If I understand the question correctly, this is a perception or a mindset or an image of the African American male that has been perpetrated down through history, and there's been a propaganda campaign that has portrayed the African American male in such a negative light and such a dark light that it is still unto this day, is even in some corners of America, people still believe some of the falsehoods that have been put out about the African American male, such as he's lazy or he's a shiftless or even sneaky or cunning, or just all of those things over time that have been put out about the African American male throughout history. And those, it's sad to say, but that campaign that was established to discredit or to shame that person, the African American male, is still affected. You can tell when you get on the elevator in certain places how people would bag up, or women would grab their purse, or they'll look a different way, or won't look you in the eye as if you're a threat and they don't even know you. So that we have to understand that this has been a propaganda campaign that has been put out, and it has still been affected. You don't want to get a cab in a big city. It's just harder for some things to overcome. But these are some of the issues that we face. But that's been because of how we've been portrayed down through history.
Having a black president was only a step in the right direction. A black president who is not, quote unquote, in society's eyes, a black man, does not make it any better for, quote unquote, black America. When you sit here and question the man's heritage, when you sit and question whether or not the man's family should be identified as American, you exclude him from the black race. So if you exclude our president from the black race, that means you're excluding a race of people. We as black men, we tend to say that if one person moves up, then they should definitely reach back and pull all of us up. Not to the point of saying, since one person has moved up, let us all move up with that person. So if we eliminate the idea that one man is better than the other man, then maybe we as black men will be able to grow together and reach that level of the President of the United States and consider him to be a black man, an African American man, the President of the United States, where there is no race, there is no boundary, there is no color.
The perception of the black male or the African American male today is one that is mainly negative, and the reason it is mainly negative is because that is the predominant thing that we see, that people see. In society today, media plays a major role in our daily lives, whether we realize it or not. And I'm not using media as the scapegoat here, but the bottom line is, if you see violence, gang shootings, just negative images, if you're constantly bombarded by negative images, you're going to get the perception of a race being predominantly negative. Yes, we have a black male as a president, but it's almost as if he's too far removed. He's not dealing with the everyday life that most black Americans are. And the bottom line is perception, the media sways it one way. So
I think African Americans are perceived as the way they are is because of stereotypes. America is a country that judges people by stereotypes first, without fully diving in and trying to figure out a person on an individual basis. I think it's just us as a society, we are judging people off stereotypes.
Do you think integration hurt or helped the black cause and the black race as a whole?
I think integration was good, and for no other reason, it's because we had to integrate in order to assimilate. And if we were ever going to work into a worldwide society, we cannot do it in a vacuum. We have to be able to get along with people of other races and stuff. Not only does that help us as a people, that helps us as a world. We were certainly, I don't think we were put here to just fight all of our lives. If we were here and we have differences, I think we ought to use our time more wisely, like resolving those differences rather than finding ways to not get along.
I think integration helped us in many respects to break down some of the barriers that prevented black people or African Americans from being fully involved in the society in ways that there's no question they should have been. However, I do think there's a school of thought that says that with integration, there was some attempt to assimilate, but not really fully engage black people in the society. So to that extent, I think that integration has been harmful. I think the black community, which at one point had more solidarity, had more people in churches and in organizations that were supportive of our communities, have kind of fallen apart and fallen by the wayside. So It's a complicated topic, but I do think that it's worth looking at what integration did and what were some of the harmful things and what we can do about that.
As it relates to the education of our children, the children throughout this community, how do we encourage more diversity, if you will, within our school systems? That's public school especially, but even in our private schools, we don't get the attention that we deserve, I believe, as it relates to those teachers, instructors, professors, staff members, that I believe would enhance our community.
This issue about diversity has been an issue that has been plaguing America itself, not just the city, but America itself since the end of slavery. What to do with our people who are here. We have to have the will, especially in government agencies, the schools, to say that our hiring is not about a quota or is not about hitting a certain number, but it's about reflecting our community. And then we have to make sure that we have the best qualified people when they apply for the jobs. Not that we want people to give us jobs, but we have to have good candidates and qualified candidates to come up for the jobs, and then we have to have the will to hire them. And we have to stop using excuses, especially like in the school system, say, well, the principal hires or so-and-so hires and they don't have human resources skills. That's just a put-out. We have to have the will to put people in place on the school board, on the city council, and whatever boards they determine the hiring makeup, to have the will to hire the best qualified people. And then also they have in their mind that we wanted to reflect the community that we serve. In private practice, it gets a little bit more dicey, I guess, or more difficult to say. But where you spend your dollars tells a whole lot. If you feel that you don't see people of your color or people who are of your persuasion working in areas, then you have to use the power of the Green Book. But what I've found out is that a lot of times we have this barrier that we're not going to be able to get a job there. And then when we put in for a job and don't get hired, we don't have a recourse. But we have to have someone who has the will to take it to the next step. And so I would encourage people to say that be the best qualified. Don't be afraid to put in the application and then ask questions why you're not hired. And then if, for whatever reason, it comes back not favorable, be willing to go the next step and do an economic boycott if you feel strongly enough about it. But we got to elect people. On the other side, we have to elect people who have the will to do what is right for the whole community. No community is served by 100% blacks teaching all children, and no community is served well by 100% white teaching all the children. We have to find a mix that represents our community and have the will to do it. And then for whatever reason, because I'm sure that there are some people saying, well, I've tried that, I've done that. You always have a federal recourse. I know some school systems, they don't post things, or they say, well, how do you get a job? It's never posted. They say, well, we hire from the inside. But someone has to have the will to say, step up to the Department of Education and say, we have a discrepancy in our community. Department of Justice say, we had a discrepancy in public hiring or public schools or on public city jobs or state jobs. And they have to take it to the federal level to try to get some recourse. But we have to have the will to take the battle all the way to wherever the battle leads. And that's the only way that we can ensure that we're going to get the diversity that we want.
When we think about trying to increase diversity, and let's look at education first. Education is an arena where the minority has frequently not looked to go, and the reason basically is because the pay is so low. When you have minorities that are going to college and they're struggling to get through college, or when they're getting through college on an easy level, they tend not to think in terms of becoming a teacher. And it's really just because of the pay that you're getting. You can look at police and fire and attribute the same thing. The police department and the fire department, those people do a tremendous job, and it's a very dangerous, challenging occupation. Yet the pay is still low in comparison to what many jobs pay. Now, when we go into the business arena and we look at a lack of diversity there, oftentimes it's because the jobs that are offered are low-paying jobs. Minorities still have not been as successful in going into the higher level of some of these jobs and some of these companies. Now, some of it has to do with the desire of the minority applicant to go there, because there are opportunities that you can go into some of these companies at a lower level in management or whatever, but with the idea that if you're successful and you apply yourself, you do have the potential to move forward. But in the most instances, I would say the fact that the dollar amount is so low that minorities are paid, it really prevents people, particularly people that are going to college and getting a college degree, from moving towards some things. And it's a proven point that there are still many occupations where the pay for minorities is different from non-minorities.
You know, how do we get more diversity in our teaching staff in our school system, also in our business community, also maybe even in our civic leader, like police force and firemen? Again, it starts all with a voice. We as people have to cry loud when we don't see diversity. So for example, in our school system, we got to encourage our administrators to make sure they're going to various places to recruit teachers, not just in certain institutions like predominantly white institutions, but make sure they also are going to HBCs, historically black institutions. So we got to make sure we have a strong community, a strong basis in going to different institutions to recruit staff. The same is going to be in our police system, in our fire department. Where are you recruiting? Are you recruiting a place where African Americans might gather? From churches, from civic organizations like fraternities, sororities? Are you recruiting in those? Do you give them notices? Do you network with groups like NAACP, like Voters League, like other civic groups? So we've got to make sure that we have a voice, and we use that voice when it's not being reflected. So we have a system of African American teachers, and you don't see a strong African American population, or in business leaders, for example, and you don't see diversities in certain companies, then we as a voice say, you know, there needs to be some diversity in your organization, and we need to call them out on that. Whether it's any organization in our community, we need to make it known. But again, the voice, it starts with the vote. Make sure we are voting. So when you have that power of that voice, that vote, then you have certain legislators in place that can also speak for you. But again, when we don't vote, we lose our voice. And that's going to be crucial.
So the way we get more diversity in our public school system is simple. Hire more diversity. I know it's easy said, it's easy done. Okay. In our school system in Lynchburg, you see a lot of black people who are not in teaching roles. They are in other roles in the school system, okay? In order to get more teachers in the system, we need to talk to our teaching assistants. We need to talk to our staff who are part of the school system, who may have stopped education or may have not finished or pursued things. Essentially, we need to look within our community and hire, I'm not going to say the right people, but we need to hire people from within our community. Lynchburg City Schools too often goes outside, and we're bringing in people from Northern Virginia and other areas to try to help fix our school system problems, and that's not the way to do it. Let's look to our community. Sitting right here, I have a degree in elementary education. I also have a master's in education. I did not finish my testing, so I'm not technically allowed to teach. I work as a TA in the school system. I work with after school. You know, I am doing what I can until I get the right credentials. But the bottom line is, there are plenty of others out there like me who, if given the chance, would volunteer, would be in the school system to make that difference. But you guys aren't searching and you're not hiring the right people, bottom line.